Welcome to another video, guys. Now that we have a product which we found in the last video, so now in this video what we're going to do is we're actually going to find a supplier from whom we are going to procure our products. Right, the last thing you want that you actually choose a supplier which is not that great, doesn't give you that great quality customer service. Maybe he's sending you fake products or cheap quality products, which eventually will lead a lot of returns and chargebacks, and your payment provider like PayPal or Stripe will eventually shut down your account, and you'll be basically back to ground zero. So finding the right supplier is actually one of the most crucial steps in the entire process. We have to make sure that we are getting a quality supplier from whom we're going to be procuring our products. Setting up the things the right way in the first go is actually the most important step, and that's what we're going to be doing in this video. So what we're going to do right now is, so for an example, if the product which we found in the last step was a piece of cat jewelry, what we're going to do is come over here and search for that particular product. And now after it refreshes, you're gonna find a list of products over here. There you go. You're gonna be finding a list of products over here as well. So the way I like to use this tool, whenever I open the search page and I type in a product and I end up getting on this page, I always search by and sort by orders. The reason I search by order, that I want to make sure that the supplier is good enough and they have been selling a couple of products, and not that it's a new supplier, maybe sold a couple of products. And as I mentioned before as well, you want to make sure you find a great supplier from whom we're going to be building a great relation and giving them a repeat business as well. However, we have to make sure the supplier is good enough. For that, and to check that whether the supplier is good or not, I actually use a tool called Aliexpress. I'll actually show you how to use that as well. For an example, let's say if this is the product we're selling. After you install the Aliexpress tool, you actually get this little thing over here as well. What this basically does is it will give you analysis of the supplier, that how good the supplier is. If you look over here, this particular supplier is a 99% positive feedback score, which is amazing. I always suggest and use a supplier for whom the feedback score is 90% or plus. So this particular supplier, it's been more than 1 year on Aliexpress. I always recommend, guys, please always go for a supplier which has been at least for 1 year, and we don't want to rely on someone or a supplier who's super new. This particular supplier has more than 1,000 feedback score. This is not bad, but I just to be on a safer side, I recommend a supplier which has more than 2,000 feedback score, just so we eliminate our chances of getting a bad supplier eventually. So this one, items correspond to the description, 4.9% and above. Very communicative, very quick response to messages. Seller are frequently online. Guys, a lot of times we'll have to be communicating with the supplier as well. Now for an example, let's say you sell a product to a customer, and the tracking codes are not being updated automatically, or maybe there's some problem with the product, maybe the product is faulty or it never reached the customer at all. So in that case, you definitely will be talking to the supplier and reaching out to them. And the last thing you want, that after the product has been sold and you've incurred a lot of money on marketing as well, that the seller basically doesn't reply to your queries. So we have to make sure the supplier we're choosing in the first go, and as I mentioned before as well, we have to make sure that we are setting the things the right way in the first go, so we avoid problems in future. So having good communication with the suppliers is really important. So very fast shipping, we don't have to worry about that, because we're going to be using e-packet, which is usually shipping between 12 to 20 days in the big 4 countries, which is the United States of America, UK, Australia, and Canada. And these are basically the 4 big countries which we're going to be focusing on. So the second thing I like to do is check the reviews. Since you are a drop shipper, and in a lot of cases cheap products like this, maybe cat jewelry, it is a pretty common product, right? And you want to make sure, since you're never touching the product, and you don't know how the product is going to look like. So for that, what I usually suggest and what I usually do is check the reviews. I mean, these are the people, guys, who have already ordered these products and they've come back to AliExpress to give their precious feedback. So as you can see, corresponds to the description, all quality, thank you very much. So fast shipping, got 2 divs, very beautiful and very well packed. Now at least you know, since you haven't already ordered the product. I mean, eventually, guys, once your store is set up, I would suggest just order a product, so you know at least how the product looks and what kind of packaging it reaches in, which is again going to take 12 to 20 days depending on where you're living. But at least you have a brief understanding of how they actually ship out the products to you. This is, look at the packaging, nicely packaged product, very beautiful pendant, the product fully corresponds to the description. That's what we basically want, right? Last thing we want is the description is saying something else and the products which the customer actually receives is totally garbage, so which basically would defeat the whole purpose at the first place. So after we check the reviews, the next thing we're going to do is contact the supplier and see how well the communication is. Since I mentioned before as well, that communication is key, and a lot of times you may run into a circumstance where you have to reach out to the supplier and talk to him about something or the other. So what we're going to do over here is we're actually going to contact the supplier. We're gonna ask him a couple of questions just to make sure whether they actually reply or not and how well their English is. Since it's a Chinese website, you don't know how well are they gonna be communicating. Maybe they don't know any English at all. I mean, guys, I've dealt with a bunch of suppliers, and a lot of times you'll see that they don't speak very well English. And the way we're gonna actually be contacting the supplier, guys, here's a tip, guys. Always, whenever you're talking to any of the suppliers on AliExpress, always make sure you're numbering your questions. I can guarantee, if you actually send a couple of questions, let's say for an example, if you send 5 questions to 100 people, only 2 or 3 are actually going to reply to all the questions you have. So what I would always suggest, just number all the questions. As many questions you're asking, just number the questions. So I almost guarantee if you actually do it this way, you are going to get reply for each and every question you have. So a couple of questions we could actually ask them is whether they do bulk drop shipping or not. Eventually, if you are going to scale, you want to make sure they have those facilities and they do have the capacity to procure in high quantities as well. What I mean by blind drop shipping is you have to basically just ask your supplier whether he's able to not put the receipts and any other promotional or marketing material inside the packaging itself as well. Last thing you want is to upset your customer and show them that they paid $40 for a product for which it costed you only $2 or $3. So this is actually very important. And private label, what private label means is once you actually find a winning product and you're testing and you want to scale your product to the next level, and eventually what you can do is you can get a logo made on Fiverr or Upwork or any other websites. And what you could do is you can tell your supplier that, hey, I want to actually place a logo on the packaging or the product itself as well, which in turn helps you build a really nice relationship with the customer. At the end of the day, it's all about how your customer perceives the product, and the customer will basically pay for the perceived value of the product and not just for the value of the product. And for the next time when you are reaching out to the customer, maybe through an email or something else, they will definitely recognize your logo. And for getting logos made, what we're going to do is we are going to use a website called Fiverr or Upwork. That's from where we are actually going to get a logo made. So for this step, what we're going to do is we are going to use a tool called Fiverr.com. Here we're going to come and we are going to procure our logo. And since we want to find a logo, we're going to be typing a logo here. Over here, what you'll see is you'll see a bunch of people. I always like to sort it by best selling. Over here, you are going to find hundreds of people who are going to who are going to be making logos for you. The way I do it is I never recommend going crazy and spending a ton of money on logo. The maximum I would like to spend on a logo is maybe $25. So after you do that, you are going to find a bunch of people who are willing to make logos for under $25. So since, as you can see over here, bunch of nice people, definitely you can get your logo made as well. And in the next couple of videos, we're going to be talking about what size of logos we need as well. So just a brief understanding of how you can basically get your logos made. Another tool, another website which we can use is Upwork. The same way, it is a very similar website. These are basically two websites where I find my logos, and anything I want to do, I get it done from these websites. Eventually, even if you want to get a virtual assistant to fulfill your orders once you scale, these are the websites from where you're going to be finding your virtual assistants. Same way, once you type logo over here as well, you're going to be finding tons of people who can basically do all that stuff for you. So that's it for this video, guys. See you in the next.